And they're
Now,
fighting too.
oh, sorry. This. Go ahead, Mark.
And they're fighting too. Claude and Henry are currently fighting. Marcus fought, and Frank has had a couple fights. But these guys here are still in the
Still in the
game.
boxing game. Yep.
Yeah, one thing I really like is when it comes to work and it comes to boxing, I guess it's kind of a Hispanic trait we picked up. We're always constantly
Yeah.
together, and
Yeah.
you're always
Yeah,
with
for sure.
family.
And I mean, really, at the end of the day, what's made me like, I guess thinking about it now, what's made me stick so close is because, you know, at the end of the day, the world's going to try to chop you down. You know, like you've told us before, we'd call each other names and like bully each other and everything. And you'd tell us like the world's going to try to cut you down enough. You know, the last people that need to be doing it is your family. So really, after hearing that, even at a young age, we were able to take that in and really soak that in because we were able to put our experiences first and be like, dang, he's right. You know, we got all these people saying, and when we first moved up here, it's like all the Mexicans, you know, it was just, we've always been like, not necessarily outed, but as a different group. It's definitely like anytime people see us, they know we're brothers or related and siblings, and they know that we're some people know that we're of different descent and everything. So overall, everything's just been a complete trip, but one that's made us into the men that we are and are going to continue to be, and has got us closer. And I could only imagine what our relationships are going to be like in the next 10 years.
And I like it that they work. I like it that they're boxing. I never pushed them to box. I probably pushed them to work a little bit. But I also told them that they need to do whatever they want to do, whatever their heart, whatever they. I'm not telling them they need to be painters. They just decide to do that. They decided to box. It wasn't like I forced or pushed or was trying to live vicariously through them. And that's what's pretty cool too, because they've done it on their own. But it always reminds me of the old saying that I heard. It says, "More truth is caught than taught." I was thinking one time when I was in Guatemala, cigarettes were cheap. I started smoking again. And I'm sitting there one day telling them they ought to not smoke. And I'm like, here I'm smoking. So that made that got me to quit the second time. And occasionally I might take a hit off a cigarette once in a while, but I don't smoke. I never smoke. So your kids are going to watch more what you do and mimic what you do than what you tell them, unless what you tell them is congruent with what you're doing.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that.
The old apple doesn't fall far from the tree is pretty true, and that goes both ways for good or for bad.
No, that's absolutely true, man. And as you know, Mark, I have a 9-year-old son, so I'm very cognizant of like what I say and what I do around my son, because what I realize is that as parents, like, you don't realize how much your kid is watching until like you really like start to see something come out of them, whether it be good or bad.
Yeah. A lot of our mannerism, he often wonders, why are they doing that? Like, you do it, you know what I mean? Just anything as little as, I don't know, for example, a lot of the times when I was younger, I'd sit there and rub my face like this. I had no facial hair, and I always wondered why I did it. But then as I got older and my dad continued to grow out his beard, I'd always watch him sit there and do that. I'm like, that's where I got that from. So it's just even little tiny stuff, like the way we sit in a chair, the way that we say certain stuff, the way that we react to certain things, that's all came from our father.
Yeah, I know when my dad used to drive me around, I always sat up in the front seat or whatever. My dad would drive with one hand and have his hand on the transmission shifter or whatever. Now when I drive, that's exactly how I sit. And people always ask me why I sit like that, because usually people who sit like that are driving manual cars. So now when I sit like that, people always ask me why, and I never really knew until I realized that my dad does the exact same thing.
Yep. I mean, we were doing a job here recently. We were doing some charity work for an old friend of my father's, and the whole time she just kept saying how Henry was like, oh my goodness, he's just like your father when he was younger, and just everything. I'm sitting there, I always wonder what my dad was like when he was younger, and I guess I can get somewhat of a little bit of a view from it whenever I took
that video of us where that dude was getting the key for the car.
Oh yeah, literal same face. It's like I have a photo, or it's a video of my dad and Henry watching somebody do something. They have the same expression in their face of curiosity, and it looks like they're both angry, but they're both just curious, sitting there watching what it's like. And they look, granted, Henry has darker features and everything, but there was still that even that look, that small look that we picked up. It's the smallest things, you never really would think that we'd pick that up, but we sure did.
Now you think about that principle. What we're talking about right now is so important when it comes to who you spend your time with, because who
Agreed.
you spend the most time with, whether for good or bad, you're going to pick up their habits, their mannerisms, and that's why it's so important to be around people who you want to be like, because
Yeah.
you're going to pick it up whether you want it or not. It's just the power of association.
No, that's so true. That's so true. Like you gotta really be mindful of who you keep around you. You want to make sure that you have positive people that are doing positive things, because like I've had some friends that have done a bunch of negative things, and I try to instill some positivity in them, and then not realizing some of the negative things that they were doing were starting to rub off on me.
It does.
Yep.
You become what you hang around is the one thing that my dad told me. And he always told me, he's like, show me your group of friends and I can tell you where you will probably be in the next 5 years.
I completely agree with that. So look, I have a question now for the four of you that are in the painting business. Now, it seems like it's a bit of a dangerous job at times. Like, do you embrace the risk?
Yeah, actually, that's one of the things that my dad kind of has a hard time still accepting, that we do some pretty sketchy stuff, but you know what? The job's got to get done.
Yeah.
It has to get done. So there'll be times whenever we'll be doing some stuff that, I won't mention on air, but it's probably pretty risky and everything. He's like, oh, you guys watch out. It's like, we're good. We're fine. We're good. And now, granted, there's times where, a ladder might slip out of underneath you and everything. But if you're not, what do they say? If what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah, Claude's the
He
most.
wasn't following protocol. That's why. If I'd
Yeah.
have caught him doing that, he wouldn't.
Claude gets up on the high stuff and squeezes in between little spaces and
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. He'll get up on that board and kind of dances around up there pretty much because
Yeah.
he's so used to it,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we work as safely as we can, but sometimes there's just no way to get to things.
To
You
certain
gotta do a
things, yeah.
stretch or whatever.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
You got the people who can do the heavy work, and then you got the little mouse who can
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
the little places.
But a big part of it is like, here's the thing though, without any sort of danger, I really don't think you are truly living, because as a man, for example, now we can't really, we don't have to go out and hunt. We don't have to go out and kill animals and drag them back miles to butcher them and hope that they're not sick, enough for the family to eat. So we look for, I guess, for lack of better words, danger in certain situations, risk,
Like
because
boxing.
like boxing, for example, Henry, he's out of the family. He is the best boxer. And we've all put ourselves into, for example, boxing and everything. And it's because, there's hardly, in such a safe nation, you hardly have to take any risks. But I think part of being a man and part of becoming a man is taking risks, is being uncomfortable, is doing things that will make you sick to your stomach, to where one day you'll be able to look back and realize, wow, I really, we rather live with the positive what ifs than, what if I would have done that, rather, than sitting there and now we think about it, it's like, oh, well, what if that ladder would have fell, or what if this would have happened? There's risk, and that's what we like, we as men, we feed from, risk taking opportunities.
It helps you build a lot of character too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Like,
do some things like the lift the other day. We had a lift. We were up about
Yeah.
50 foot. That thing gets up there and starts shaking.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it gets you get those tingles in your stomach. Those like
Like
at
a
first,
butterfly.
But after you're up, like when you get up on a 40-foot ladder, I first climb up
Yeah.
there. I'm pretty dang nervous.
Yeah.
But after a day or two, actually, it's more dangerous after some time because you become complacent.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of the things we do are very risky, but it's just part of the job.
Yeah, I think it's like I said, the risk is a big part of being a man. Is constantly taking risks. Now, don't put yourself in literal danger to where you might die,
Yeah.
but take risks. That is a big thing, and our fathers taught us that. And we've watched them. There's been times whenever we were in Guatemala before we came up here. I remember he took the risk on asking us if we wanted to go on an adventure. I had no idea where we were going, but as kids, we even took the risk because our father took the risk of going with him. Like, well, let's do it. We trust dad, and everything. So a risky life is a fulfilling life, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, another thing about it too is speaking about risks. I know that, as they said, like as a man, you take risks and whatnot, but I know there's been a couple times where I've been scared, like in my room, or I'll hear something outside, or like one of these nights I heard something, I think it was outside my window, and I thought somebody was knocking on the window, messing around. So I just texted Claude, and he went around the entire house.
I went
and-
around with that bat.
Yeah, with a bat, and he just looked around the house. And then I know one time, I think I tell Henry something about, I think somebody was in the basement, or I think somebody's here or something, and Henry just came downstairs. He didn't have anything, and he just came downstairs and he looked around the house, and
And
no hesitation either. They just do it.
there was that time that we went up to the other home that you own in Hannibal,
Oh, yeah.
and there was
Oh,
we
yeah.
we didn't know if there was someone in there. There was one of the windows was broken or something. We were not sure if anybody was in there, but my dad climbed up the scaffolding and just crawled through the window, and he didn't say anything besides, "You boys come up here," and without hesitation, I mean, we were just as quick as we possibly could. We got up there, and to our surprise, there was somebody up there. Now, granted, like my dad said, we didn't know if when we came in there, someone was going to be around the corner ready to hatch one of us or something. But that was, we didn't think, we just did it. I mean, it's because
Right.
we've seen my dad do the same exact thing. I mean, whenever they first moved into our grandma's house, there was a bang at the door or something. My dad walked around the house with the shotgun, walked around outside, and because we've watched him take that protective lead, because he's our father and he was supposed to protect us, I've even been able to do the same exact thing for my girlfriend. I'll get back home from, for example, like a meetup or something, and she'll be like, "Hey, these weird sounds are going on upstairs," and me, I can fight and everything, but I also I protect myself with my firearm. So I walk throughout the whole house. I'll check underneath the bed. I'll tell her, "Be by the door just in case you hear me yell or something. I need you to take our child and run, and I will take on the danger." But the only reason why and now granted, I'm scared the whole entire time. But
Absolutely.
the only reason why I can do that and why I'm willing to do that is, one, to protect my family, but because we watched our father do it. Now, if he was a coward, I think that I'd probably tuck my tail between my legs and be like, "Come on, let's just get up out of here." You know what I mean? Not protect my home, not protect my family.
With the gun.
I mean,
Yeah,
there's been a couple times where my dad does this thing for the guys' birthdays where he sets off firecrackers and whatnot,
Yeah,
and
that's a Spanish thing.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
would get scared because I mean the first time he did it, there were only 3 that went off, so I had thought they weren't firecrackers. I had thought they were gunshots and whatnot, and I got really scared and I was ready to leave. And I've always asked my dad what he would want me to do if somebody were to break in or something, and my dad he told me, he goes, "Leave, do
Run.
not stay, don't try to save anybody,
Yeah.
leave." He says, "Just get out of the house."
Yeah.
Like that's his like that's the number one thing he's always told me to do is that they can
Scatter.
handle it. They all can
Get
handle
out,
it.
get out while the boys protect.
Yeah, so it's also a good thing too having them all around, because I can go to bed not worried about, oh, is somebody going to come in here in the
Mhm.
middle of the night? Like I don't have to worry about it because first of all, our house is old. So the minute you walk in the house, we'll know if you're not supposed to be here, because
Yeah.
we can just, and we have dogs that bark and yap. So I mean, regardless of if, you walk in this house and you don't belong here, they will know. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of an instinct for everybody who lives in this house is when there's someone here that's not supposed to be,
What?
they know, and I mean they'll do whatever to
Plus
protect
the
me
sounds that
too.
the house makes when you're walking around. Like we know
It's
all
an
of
Every-
old house.
Everybody's walking patterns, the way everybody moves
Yeah.
around the house. I mean, we all know.
We've all kind of picked up on it because it's hard to walk around the house and be quiet. And I mean, in order to get to me, you have to get through every single one of
Mhm.
these guys.
And I mean,
So-
like my father, what do you call it? 5 a.m. fight, a fight or flight or something like.
4 o'clock in the morning courage. Napoleon talked about.
Yeah, yeah.
It's when a man
Yep.
can be woke up out of nowhere and be ready to fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and because of our father, we were taught that, and we were. I mean, that's how we all stand. We're not the biggest and most brawny men, but hey, we got heart, and we're brave. We're
Yes.
brave men because of our father.
So when I go to bed, I'm not worried about someone breaking into the house. I'm not worried about being not protected by people. And that's the one thing that I can be most grateful about is they would put their lives at risk just to save mine.